Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we will go over my build guide for Necrotic Wolf Beastmaster utilizing Yulia's path to scale a large amount of minion melee necrotic flat damage to give us an edge over the old wolf builds. Before I get into the video, if you enjoy the content and want to see more, I suggest liking and commenting on the video, as that's the best way to support the channel. As per the intro, we are using Yulia's path to give our minions a lot of melee flat necrotic damage. It gives our minions up to 4 necrotic flat per Maelstrom casted from any source and lasts as long as the Maelstrom does, meaning we can self-cast them, cast them from Warcry, and also cast them from our idols and relic. This in combination with soul harvesters, which give a lot of increased melee necrotic damage, it allows us to focus most of our gear affixes on minion HP and regen so they can survive in higher corruptions. For the majority of my playtime with the build, I did not use an Artor's Legacy. That was just added in later on after I could afford the affixes, but you could technically don't need it at all. A +2 to summon wolf on the helm is just as strong, if not stronger. The Fang is also optional. It pretty much just says +1 to summon wolf, but since we're so close to the node inside Summon Wolf that allows us to do the same thing, it's not necessarily, mandatory. Thanks to the spamming of Maelstroms, our sustain is actually nuts. With a little bit of healing effectiveness, our Warcry pretty much heals us to full every time, as its healing is tripled when we're at low life, which is a lot of the time, as Beastmaster, if you did not know, is a class based on endurance threshold, meaning the last third of his HP is the tankiest, and this alongside Maelstrom's passive healing is enough to keep us alive at 300 plus corruption. The one issue is if you do not have aspect of the boar up, you're somewhat squishy, so constantly keeping it up is a priority. For idols, we're using the chance to cast Maelstrom idols, which gives us up to 3-ish Maelstroms constantly. I don't know if these are exactly worth it, but the extra damage and healing they give are probably worth it. Since we are auto-casting Maelstrom and casting it from Warcry, we are using a very large amount of mana. This means we need a way of getting our mana back, and thankfully we have Swipe to do this. We have a rotation with this build specifically. I'll go into more detail about it later in the video, but the simple version is summon Frenzy Totem, use Wolf Howl, which is brought off cooldown by using Frenzy Totem, then use Warcry. That's our optimal rotation for the best results. We're obviously swiping through all of this as well to gain our mana back. Thanks to the skill queue being introduced a few patches ago, we can just hold down any of the buttons and wait till they go off. With that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the build. Like I said, it's just a Beastmaster. So like I said in the intro, the combo is mainly what we do is we usually summon Frenzy Totem first because that brings our Howl off of cooldown. Now Howl gives us a lot of increased damage in Frenzy and also increases our crit thanks to a node inside of Frenzy Totem giving us 100% crit. And of course we Warcry as much as we can to give us a lot of flat damage. Then we do the combo again. And then that's pretty much how we deal our damage. That's like our combo. I know a lot of people have been asking me to include the combos a lot more, and I'll be doing it in the intro from now on. Now that being said, let's get into the skills, shall we? So for Summon Wolf, we take 2 points travel into Lupine Endurance, although health is appreciated. 2 points travel into Wolf and Recovery. Wolves have increased health regeneration. This is very powerful as we have a lot of minion health regen, as you should with this build, and wolves really abuse health regen, which is really nice. 1 point travel into Earthborn. The physical health leech is kind of okay, but not really, since most of our damage is melee necrotic. Then 1 point into Pack Hunters to have an extra wolf. And of course, we take 1 point travel into Savage Hunters. If you have +2 on your helmet instead of an Artor's Legacy, this is actually where you'd be putting those extra 2 or 4 points if you have a +4 to wolf. If you are that lucky, then you can just have a lot more damage with your wolves. Then 5 points in a legendary bite. This more melee crit chance and melee damage is actually how we are critting so consistently. On my chest, I only have about 5% added melee crit chance. So in theory, we shouldn't be critting all the time, but thanks to this in combination with the frenzy stuff, it makes our wolves 100% crit all the time with a little bit of investment. And of course, the stun chance is really nice. I've noticed a lot of times when I am DPSing down a boss, like for instance Orbis or the last rune boss, which is the corruption I was pushing, what would happen is he would get stunned out of his animations, and it would actually make the fight much easier, because every single time he'd go to do something, one of my wolves would stun him. Normally, stun chance doesn't really work that well, but thanks to the fact that we have 6 wolves, sure, if we have like 6% chance to stun, but we have 6 wolves doing it constantly, right? So in theory, you stun eventually, right? Which is really nice, what I've noticed as well. Then 4 points travel into On the Hunt for the attack speed and the movement speed, as you want your wolves to move as fast as possible, as this improves your clear speed significantly. Then of course you want as much attack speed as possible, because in the perfect world, if your minions are one-shotting enemies, which they normally are if you are at max stacks and stuff, usually the faster your attack rate is, the faster they can move through packs, because they aren't locked into animations. Then 4 points into Howl of Might. This is a lot of our damage, as bonuses are tripled if we've howled recently. 40% goes up to 120% more damage. That's where a lot of our damage comes from, hence why we're using Frenzy Totem to spam Howl. Then of course, this is the node you would take if you do not have a Fang. I am just using a Fang because it's convenient, but you actually don't technically have to use a Fang. You could just use this instead. You'd have a little bit less damage, but it's definitely worth it. You will need a +2. You either grab out of Legendary Bite or use your +1 to Wolf if you're not using Artor's Legacy. Alright, for Warcry here, just to note, I am currently having insane lag issues with bleed. Whenever there's bleed on targets, my computer lags significantly. So these 2 nodes specifically lag me out of the game. Now, you can fix this by utilizing Jormun's Wrath to turn it into Frostbite, and I no longer lag. But if you do not lag from bleed like I do, you would take the point out of Jormun's Wrath and run it into Invigorate or Purging Shout. If you run Purging Shout, you don't have to run Cleanse Pot, and if you run Invigorate, then you could just pretty much heal like all of our minions too, right? Alright. And then for points, we take 1 point travel into Juggernaut for the invulnerableness. It's really nice. 3 points into Breath of a Terror. This healing is tripled and is effective by healing effectiveness, which is really nice. So we heal up to full pretty much whenever we're at low life, which, as you can tell with our endurance threshold, we are very close to low life all the time. I need to move my head. As you can tell, we have a lot of endurance threshold in comparison to our life. It's about a third, which is really strong. Then, of course, 4 points into Whirlpool. It makes it so we summon 4 Maelstroms. The reason why this is so strong is because it only costs half to do all the Maelstroms, which is nice. Then we take 2 points travel into Deep Roar. 4 points into Battlecry, gives our minions a little bit more crit. Although one thing I might do now, since we have enough crit from the Summon Wolf thing, I would take out the points from Battlecry and take out the points from all this. I would have to put in points to deal with the bleed, but I would take all the points out of this and put it into Energized Charge to make your Warcry cost a little bit less mana, so it's not as crazy on your mana. That's one thing I would do if I could redo this build. And then, of course, 1 point travel into Staggering Roar, 1 point travel into Kinetic Scream, 2 points travel into Shredding Howl, then 1 point into Shallow Breath to give us the 50% cooldown so we can spam it as much as possible. Then for Maelstrom here, this is your stereotypical utility Maelstrom setup. Main differences is we're just running Sudden Gale for the autocast, as it gives us extra ones. As you can tell, we are at 0 mana, but if we swipe, we will be at full mana, which allows us to do our full combo to do a lot of damage. So as long as we're swiping on a single target, we can just keep our full combo on a single target and do just fine. And of course, when you're doing monos, you don't need all the damage in the world, so you can kind of just like go around and swipe stuff as your minions kill thing. And also the swipes do help you out a lot, because if you do have health on melee hit, and in swipe we have some leech. It's fine to like kind of walk around and leech. Then for Frenzy Totem here, we take 4 points into Rapidity to increase the Frenzy effect from Frenzy Totem. I don't know if this effect gets overlaid the Frenzy from the Wolf Howl. I believe it does since it's stronger, and since it applies every second. I'm not entirely sure about that though. 2 points travel into Bestial Frenzy, then 1 point into Furious Cry. This makes it so that it refreshes our companion abilities whenever we summon Frenzy Totem, which brings our cooldown on our Howl from 10 seconds to 4 seconds, which is a lot better for us overall. And of course, 4 points into Lead the Pack. This is where all of our crit chance is coming from pretty much. This on top of the more % crit chance here pretty much gets us almost to 100% crit chance with our wolves. 5 points into Revitalizing Totem. As you can tell, since we're running minion health regen, having increased health regen for our minions is very strong. 1 point travel into Symbol of Haste, then 1 point into Symbol of Selfishness for extra Frenzy Totem effect. Although one thing I might do is take out these points, and then of course take out these points and put more points into Grounded, so that we have negative mana cost on this, so that it's a little bit better on our mana, so we can spam it more. I'm not entirely sure if that's better or not. I would have to try it, and next time I play the build, I'll probably try that. Then for swipe here, the most important part is 2 points travel into Blood Beast, 1 point travel into Rending, because most of our damage isn't physical, so we don't really care about this. Then 3 points into Duality of Nature for the 9 mana gained on swipe, which is really strong. You have to be hitting an enemy, but it's fine. 2 points travel into Aspect of the Panther, then 1 point into Feline Hunter for just the extra attack speed, because we want to be attacking as fast as possible to get as much mana back as possible. So attack speed is important. Then 5 points into Wave the Hunt for the health leech. It isn't much, but it's decent, especially when you're standing in a pack. 4 points into Wingarian Reach to add more area so that we hit enemies more often for the mana back. Then of course 2 points into Culling for the kill threshold, which is really nice. That's pretty much it for skills. Now for passives here, we take 5 points into Gift of the Wilderness for the increased minion health and the health. 1 point into Harmony of Blades. This will make it so that we can dual wield Soul Harvesters, which I'll show you later. 5 points into Hunter's Restoration for the increased health. As much health as possible is nice. 1 point travel into Primal Strength to give us strength and health regen, doesn't matter. Then 6 points into Survival of the Pact. It's just a lot of minion health leech, which helps them survive in sketchy boss fights. This in combination with the health regen is enough to keep them alive in most boss fights, especially Orbis. 2 points into Hunter's Emanation travel. It's just so that we can get back to the max, but it is nice to give our get more increased damage. Then 5 points into Berserker so that we are very, very, very tanky when we're at low life. Then we take 8 points into Ursine Strength. So we get negative 16% damage taken nearby. We're always nearby because we're melee attacking everything, so it's really nice. 4 points into Aspect of the Boar Heart. 5 points into Porcine Constitution. Then of course 2 points in Primal Strength. I've played around with this number. You probably should go for 3. I've noticed sometimes you don't have Boar up and you get one shot randomly just because you don't have Aspect of the Boar up. So maybe having 3 points in this is worth it. Then 1 point travel into Savagery, 1 point to Ambush. That makes it so every 5 seconds when we attack, we get Aspect of the Shark. And I actually get some duration, making it so that the Aspect of the Shark lasts longer than Ambush. So as long as we attack every few seconds, we gain Aspect of the Shark constantly, which is really nice because they buffed it recently. It used to only give 50% increased melee damage, but now it's 75% increase, which is a lot better if you want to just buff your minions, which we do. We take 5 points into Renting Maw. This armor shred is very important on single target, gives us an insane amount of damage, and I'll explain why in a second. 1 point travel into Hunters of the Deep makes it so our companions are applied with Aspect of the Shark as well whenever we use it. Then 6 points into Life of the Wilderness. If you finish the campaign and get the last 2 points, this is what you would put it in. The Endurance also applies to our companions, which is really nice. Our Endurance and our Endurance threshold, making our companions very, very tanky. Then 10 points into Viper Fangs. We want as much minion attack speed as possible, and this gives it to us. Also, having increased melee attack speed for us is nice because it makes it so we gain mana back from swipe faster. Then 10 points into Avian Shelter, which gives us a lot of physical resistance, gives our wolves physical resistance. a lot of endurance threshold. This is a very strong node. 1 point into force of nature, of course, for the extra companion. Now for the aspect of the shark stuff, I'll explain. So we get a little bit of aspect of shark. Doesn't really matter. This is just a point of travel because we gain our aspect of the shark from ambush. The reason why is so we grab 6 points. Eventually you'll want to get 8 points. I'll find a way to like figure that out. But you get aspect of the shark effect and duration. Why this is so strong is because this is also applied as aspect of the shark. So not only are we getting 100% increased effect of aspect of the shark, which is 150% increased damage for our minions, it's also 30%, it's also 20% attack speed, and it's also 200% armor shred, which is enough to pretty much camp out our armor shred. I know it's a little bit less effective for like necrotic damage since it's armor, but it's just free damage. It is literally just free damage because you have so many wolves attacking that you reach armor shred cap instantly. It's amazing. Like you can tell when you're like pushing through monos and you fight a tanky rare and like your wolves are on them for more than a second. It's like bam, you already hit like 4K hits and they're dead. And I love it. So that's why we're running an aspect of the shark specifically in this setup. Then we take 8 points into Cry of the Lynx. This gives us makes it so that whenever we cast our companion ability, which is Howl, which we're casting all the time now, gives us aspect of the lynx. You could technically reduce this a little bit, the duration. You could take a few points out of this and put it somewhere else. I would have to play around with the numbers, but I think 8 is fine because having 8 seconds is fine. Then of course 6 points into Serrated Claws. This gives our companions crit multi as well, and it also gives them extra crit multi with aspect of the lynx, so they give like 120% crit multi. This is where most of our crit multi is coming from, makes it so that we don't have to actually invest into minion crit multi at all. And that's pretty much it for the tree. Now for the gearing here, for the idols, we want, where is it? Like this, we want 4 of these. These are perfect idols, gives us increased damage, gives us a chance to cast Maelstrom every few seconds. I know it doesn't seem like really strong right now, but when we're at max mana with our Maelstrom, we get a lot of Maelstrom stacks thanks to this, because it does cost mana, but thanks to all of it, it gets us up to 8 to 9-ish stacks, and of course, Warcry gives us a few stacks as well, which is nice. So we do like these idols. You could replace these with like different kinds of idols. You can go for crit avoidance, cap your crit avoidance this way, so you can actually save your dragon, Reign of Dragons, for minion resistance. You could do that. There's a lot of other ways you could do that, but I like the Maelstroms myself because the more Maelstroms you have, the more healing you get. And for the other idols, you really want healing effectiveness. And of course, for the suffix, you can always go for minion melee attack speed. Or you could just go for hybrid HP idols. It depends on how good your gear is at the moment. Now, there is an Artor's Legacy in the build. You don't have to actually run this. I believe I have the helmet here in the crafting bases. Somewhere around here, there's a helmet. Here it is. This is the helmet I used all the way up to using Artor's Legacy. These are pretty much, what do you call it? You can pretty much run either of them. It doesn't really matter. I just was trying out Artor's Legacy because the extra wolf means more shred stacks and stuff like that, but you technically don't need it. The attack speed also helps a lot as it makes so we gain mana faster. So either way, both of them work just as fine, just whatever you feel like using. We're also utilizing the Fang. Like I said, it makes it so we can summon wolves up to our maximum. You could just use a amulet with just like healing effectiveness and stuff and be completely fine. Now for Yulia's path, this is 100% mandatory, obviously, as this is where we're getting all of our damage and all the healing effectiveness is nice. The resistances, the endurance is nice, of course. Like all of this is just so nice. And of course, it makes our Maelstroms look really sick. I'll be honest. This is like one of the coolest skills in the game with Maelstrom Necrotic. This looks absolutely nuts and I love it. And was one of the most fun things about the build running around with this. Then of course, we get the melee necrotic flat, which is the max damage, max duration for Maelstrom. So since we actually grab duration here, I believe it will last like 14 seconds. So every single time there is an extra one, they get it for 14 seconds, which is insane. So that's why we really like the idols, is the more Maelstroms, the better. Then for the weapons, where is it? This is your perfect weapon if the melee attack speed was better. You don't need the crit chance, you just want the melee attack speed, health on melee hit, and then the minion melee damage. This is perfect because that increased minion necrotic damage and the increased minion melee damage is really strong, as since we're doing necrotic damage, like this is a lot of our increased damage just dual wielding these. This makes it so all of our other affixes can be focused on other things. They don't have to be focused on increased minion damage, which saves us a lot of room. And of course, the other one is just as good, just a little bit attack speed, minion melee damage, right? Then for the chest, this is your perfect chest. The only problem is that added minion melee crit could be a little bit higher. Of course, the HP could be higher. But one thing you can do is instead of running that vitality, you could technically run aspect of the Link's effect, or you could run minion crit multi. Either way, you can get more crit multi this way and make your wolves deal more damage. I don't really care about that because they seem to do enough damage already at 300 corruption. I'd rather be tankier, so just having more HP is probably better. But this is a mandatory affix for endgame scaling because this added minion crit makes it so you can auto crit pretty much when you have everything set up. Then for the ring, my rings are pretty messed up. You just want you want a little bit of mana regen, just a very small amount, just so that you're not like sucking up your mana completely. Then of course some healing effectiveness, and then resistance. For the belt, this is your perfect belt. Just needs to be rolled better. Wait, is this not rolled better? Oh wow. Well, looks like we're doing some crafting on recording, guys. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we got it. Oh well, it was just a minor fracture, so we got a little bit more increased health. But yeah, this is pretty much your perfect belt, just needs to be rolled better. This ring is, instead of that increased minion damage, you'd rather have increased healing effectiveness. Otherwise, this ring is fine. The gloves, instead of that intelligence, could be melee attack speed or minion damage or strength, which gives us our minions flat health. Either way, these gloves are perfect. Otherwise, that health could be crit avoidance though. And of course, Yulia's path, of course, mandatory. Then of course, Frostborn speed. This is pretty much your perfect setup for your Frostborn seed. Just res, healing effectiveness, regen is perfect. My minions do go down a little bit on bosses sometimes, mainly because my minion health regen here is very low. But if it was much higher, if it was like T5 or whatever, our minions wouldn't be going down as often. Also, if you feel like your minions are dying, make sure just to add minion health regen on the helmet as well, and they won't die ever pretty much at that point. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gearing. That's pretty much it for the build. I want to thank you guys all for coming around and watching the video. I know it's been kind of rough around here, but we're trying to fix everything. Now, there will be gameplay at the end of this video, so you can see the build in action, as I know 4 minutes is not enough to gain a gauge of how good a build is or not. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.